Welcome back to the PFF podcast. It's your big time Throwcast edition this week. Steve Palazzolo joined, as always, by Zach Robinson. If you guys have been loyal subscribers to the Big Time Throwcast, be sure to follow us on the PFF podcast. That's where we'll be putting all of our episodes this season. And if you're new to the Big Time Throwcast, we are here on the PFF podcast that you guys are used to listening to, and the Big Time Throwcast is all about quarterbacks. It's our way of breaking down QBs every which way, looking at their PFF grade, their certain stats that stand out, and then Zach does a fantastic job of really giving us some insight as to scheme and usage and all sorts of other fun stuff and insights that he pulled out from 4 different teams that he played with in the NFL. So we hope you guys enjoy it. Before we dive in and review a bunch of the preseason Week 2 action, be sure to check out my new favorite way to play fantasy football over at Draft in your app store. That's all you have to do. Search Draft or go to playdraft.com, and you'll jump in and play this best ball league. That's the way they do it over there. You're going to draft your team, and then that is it. You're going to leave it, not worry about injuries, waiver wire, trades, nothing. You'll draft your team, and then you'll get your best players every single week. It is a great way to play fantasy football, and they allow you to win real money. You put up some money, you join a league, and there are prizes to be won. The drafting is super easy. All you do is go, and you can pick a fast draft or a slow draft. I'm a big fan of the fast draft. You can get it done in under an hour, and once you're drafted, you set it and forget it because it's a best ball league. Right now, we have a special offer at PFF. If you make your first deposit over at playdraft.com or in the app Draft, you'll get a free $3 deposit, free $3 game using the promo code PFF. So be sure to try it. Games start every couple minutes. You jump in, you play a game. It's the type of thing you're going to have multiple games going at the same time, and it's a ton of fun because you don't have to necessarily keep up with the league as it goes. Be sure to check it out, playdraft.com or Draft in your app store. Be sure to use the promo code PFF on your first deposit. All right, Zach, we're talking preseason Week 2 action. Sam Munson and I recapped the broader stories for preseason Week 2. Be sure to check that out. Zach and I will get into some of the quarterback play. I don't know where we want to start. We could potentially review the rookies, or do you want to go to the Denver quarterback situation, Zach? Where do you want to start?
Let's go rookies. Let's get a little update on the rookies in Week 2.
Okay, perfect. Last week we talked about the rookies in more depth. This week we'll go a little bit quicker because, we don't want to sit here and dissect every single throw and then make it into this grand, here's what this guy is because of this one throw. And it is easy to get caught up in, preseason action and, what you see, even if it's only a 10-throw sample or a 15-throw sample. But the point that we made last week was that a lot of those rookies looked exactly as we expected them to look in their first outings based off our scouting reports, what we saw from them in college, and we're still continuing to see some of that stuff. Let's start with Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City. I think, we liked what we saw in Week 1, only threw 7 passes. Still a pretty limited sample in Week 2, but did some good things and did some other things where you said, okay, that needs to get better. That's the type of stuff that we saw in college. What do you think of Mahomes overall in his second outing?
Yeah, I thought just, missed a couple of reads, which is as expected. I mean, we saw throughout college there wasn't a whole lot of just pure progression reads and him, going about it that way. So going to take some time with some of their different concepts in that West Coast system, some of the quick game stuff, just seeing stuff pre-snap and letting it go. But, man, you saw some incredible throws. The one on the run that a lot of people saw on 3rd and 1. And then there was a big 3rd down and 14 conversion where he moves a linebacker, slides up in the pocket, and makes an accurate throw. So there's definitely, more and more things that you like about this guy because arm talent-wise, I mean, he is right up there with the best in the NFL right now. And it's just a matter of time of just, getting more snaps, seeing all these different types of defensive looks and getting a little more familiar with the system.
Yeah, as we were cycling through his plays, it definitely stood out there a couple times. Like you said, easy throws there. he doesn't take it, takes off, tries to make a play with his legs. But as you also said, those special plays, either creating a little bit of movement. There was that one play where he just kind of slid in the pocket, felt like he moved the linebacker just enough to open up the passing lane. I thought that was really nice. And then the 3rd and 1 tight window throw on the run. One of those where he comes out of the play action. You're running a bootleg, and when the defender plays it really, really well, and he's right in your face, it's tough to make anything out of that play. But he managed to get outside the contained man, create enough room to throw, and then hits a tight window throw to the tight end right on the front shoulder. A pass that was 7 yards in the box score, but about 25 yards on a rope. So little things like that might seem easy from afar, and you're like, man, he does some of these more complicated things, and it's impressive. I want him to take the easy stuff, though. I need him to take, the quick throw to the flat or whatever it is. I need him to take those easy ones, and I think that's what's going to really take his game to the next level. Yeah,
we'll see. I think he can get there. He was the favorite guy to throw on and just watch play football. And it feels like that in the preseason as well. You just love watching this guy's game because there's a bit of mystery of what's about to happen. And so
yes.
It's been fun to see him, look comfortable and look like he belongs. And the guy's got a ton of confidence, obviously just an instinctive playmaker. So all positive so far for Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, definitely with you on that. Let's go to Deshaun Kizer. Again, for those who have listened to us before, know that Zach did train Deshaun Kizer this offseason, very familiar with his game. We talked about him last week. He was probably overall the best of the bunch as far as the impression that he made some outstanding throws, a game winner he dropped in a bucket, perhaps even better than that, pocket movement before hitting the deep ball. So many good things to like in week 1. I thought in week 2 definitely took a step back. And, I went so far as to go onto Twitter and post the scouting report that we have as part of our PFF Edge products. That's the 2017 draft guide. Our breakdown on Kizer, the good and the bad, what he needs to work on. I feel like in week 2, we've seen the entire gambit. We've seen everything that we listed there, from the special arm, the special pocket movement, but to also being a little slow to recognize in the pocket, taking too many sacks, a little inaccurate, inconsistent with his accuracy. What do you think of Kizer in week 2 compared to week 1?
Yeah, I think you just nailed it. Just some of those things didn't happen as smoothly in this game. Really, passing game wise was just pretty blah for no matter who was in at quarterback. Just couldn't get much going. The concepts, it seemed like that didn't match up sometimes. And then when you needed to take a throw, you got to just take it and get out of your hand and move on to the next one. So definitely not. We didn't see. I think if he hits that seam route that he just barely overthrew Njoku, it could change the narrative because where the free safety was at in that position, that thing's probably going to the house, and then the stats look completely different.
The narrative look a lot better for sure.
The narrative gets changed, and it's not so many screen pass completions. So one big miss on the seam could have helped out the night, but overall. Just needs a lot more reps, a lot more time. I hope he doesn't get rushed into this. But with the way the other guys are playing, it might happen that way.
Yeah, he was 8 for 13 on the night. 6 of those 8 passes were behind the line of scrimmage. So 6 for 6 there. So he was 2 for 7 on passes beyond the line of scrimmage. A couple bad decisions in there. A negated interception. And then the pass up the right sideline where Olivier Vernon, for some reason, was in coverage over 20 yards down the field. And I thought Kizer just kind of forced it. And, Vernon's not over there trying to make these interceptions on the move or anything. But Vernon had a much better shot at catching the ball than Kizer's receiver. I thought that was a pretty dangerous throw as well. So could have made some better decisions and certainly a step back after a very impressive week 1 outing. Let's go to Deshaun Watson and the Houston Texans. He's another guy, I think, some of the stats. Look, a couple big plays in there and everything, but only 16% of his passes came before the catch. And again, that's not always the best way to judge someone, but when you're looking at the stats and it's, a 2-yard slant that turns into a 40-yard gain, there's something to that. That's either the defense being bad or the offensive player, the receiver, being really good. So that was a part of Watson's game against New England. He ended up 3 for 10 for 102 yards. So kind of all over the place as far as stats go, 10.2 yards per attempt. But again, 102 yards and a big chunk of those coming after the catch, almost over 80 of them. So what'd you see from Watson? And I feel like a lot of this was similar to what we saw the previous week.
Yeah, I think so. It seemed like just stuff was pretty tight. Coverage-wise was pretty tight on some stuff. He misses some throws that he's got to hit. We've talked about it. He's got to just be so spot on accuracy-wise in the quick passing game, because a lot of his game is kind of like that, the Andy Dalton type of get the ball out of your hand, see everything pre-snap, and he's got to be just laser accurate on those throws. You saw a slant that he missed well behind the guy, and so some of ththose things he's got to clean up, and I think over time we'll see if he does. But then he hits a couple of the guys, gets them moving on the run, and they turn him into big gains too. So want to see him continue to develop and just if the first read's not there, collect yourself, come back to the next one, and just come back with some poise. I think that's just the main thing that we're still watching, if that's going to get better over time.
Moving on to Mitch Trubisky of the Chicago Bears. A week after we decided to start talking about, okay, when's this guy going to get in the starting lineup? When is it time to give him the ball? And he's the guy. All of a sudden, he's running with the threes, only gets 9 dropbacks, 8 official pass attempts, and also got sacked. Why the difference with Trubisky? He had a great week 1. Why not build on it instead of dropping him with the threes?
I don't understand it. I think he's a guy we talked about last week, just let go play. I mean, I think you can see with so many different things that he can do, and we were just watching, the boot play action game and him on the move, and we saw a bunch of that this week. We saw it last week. There's just a lot more that you can do offensively, and he's such a quick processor in the passing game that he's just, you throw him out there. If he messes up some blitz looks, he doesn't see him, let him learn from those mistakes, because he seems like the guy that just lets it roll right off of him. So I don't understand throwing him with the threes. He's trying to make some tough, tight window throws when the receivers are getting all the way pushed to the sideline. And I don't understand the decision. I think if any of these guys are going to be kind of ready to roll right now, it's definitely him. And I would let him go play and let the team kind of feed off of his energy, because there's definitely a different feel just when he's out there playing.
Yeah, certainly had some ugly passes in there. He forced a couple, but when he is on the move, he just looks so quick out from under center. It really does feel like this huge weapon that Chicago can use. We mentioned last week he was 5 for 5 on throws on the move, was good again on Saturday night on the design rolls. Of course, you want to see him more consistent in just the pure drop back passing game, but to your point, working with the threes and the receivers weren't helping him out a ton. But for him too, it wasn't his finest game either. Forcing a couple passes, but only had the 8 attempts to show for it. That does it for the top first and second round guys. The one other guy that we talked about last week that has gotten some play in the preseason, Nathan Peterman from the Buffalo Bills, and I'll just say it was a Nathan Peterman type of game against the Eagles, just making pretty good decisions. He misses a couple throws he shouldn't miss, but I think he does enough to just kind of keep it interesting. I don't know that he's going to be starting in Buffalo, but as they start to push Tyrod out, I think maybe they want to see what they have in Peterman.
Yeah, I agree. I think so. I think, like you said, he definitely is a guy that just sees the game well. He's very decisive with his reads, quick with his reads. Ball placement just off on some of the stuff that he should hit. But, it's going to be interesting to see this thing shake out. We've seen Tyrod struggle this preseason. Last game was just off accuracy-wise, poor decisions. And then, the fans, of course, are loving Peterman, loving the new guy in town. So it's going to be interesting to just see how much leeway I guess they're going to give Tyrod, and if they're going to just roll with Peterman, because you got a little bit more disciplined passing game with Peterman. You're going to get stay in structure and a chance to kind of more meticulously move down the field, which I'm not sure if that offense is really set up to do in the first place. So he's a solid player. I really like him. The arm is just want just a little bit more out of him. So we'll continue to kind of monitor where he's at.
Yeah, we talked about Tyrod in depth a couple episodes ago, and as well as he's played the last couple of years, I think he's really done well for what he brings to the table. Move the chains a little bit with his legs, make some downfield throws. This preseason really struggling, and the thing we didn't love about Tyrod, like you're saying, is just same complaint we had about Mahomes, maybe a little too quick to take off, a little bit too quick to drop his eyes and not make plays within structure. This preseason really has been ugly statistically and as far as PFF grade goes, but he's 13 for 26, completing 50% of those passes, only 99 yards. That's 3.8 yards per attempt. No touchdowns, 2 interceptions, a passer rating of 27.6, and those numbers aren't really that harsh. They do back up what we're seeing from a grade standpoint. Maybe not a 27.6 passer rating, but has still been one of the worst. Yeah.
Quick game wise, I think you mentioned it off air. Just quick game wise, they're running a lot, and it's just these off ball placement wise, and not seeing it out as clearly. So you can tell they're trying to get him to play in structure and trying to get the ball out of his hand. And he held onto the ball for last year well over 3 seconds on average. So
right.
You can see him trying, but is that really what he is and what he can do? It doesn't look. It looks like he's struggling so far with it.
Let me ask you this: when I was a pitcher back in the minors, there was one off season or 1 year we go to instructional league, and the coaches and all the pitching coaches are like, look, you guys cannot pitch in the big leagues if you can't control your fastball. Therefore, we're going to implement rules that are going to make you control your fastball. So they made us, during instructional league, which is like the fall equivalent of spring training, to go get some work in. They were like, first pitch fastballs, everybody. You're just throwing fastballs. First pitch, want to see you throw for strikes. 0-2, you're throwing fastballs. They said all these scenarios where they said you're going to do this because you need to. In this situation, I'm trying to compare it to Tyrod. Do you think the new coaching staff is coming in saying, if we're going to maximize what we're going to do offensively, you have to be good in the quick game? It might not be your strength, but we need to work on it. Is it that? Are they in the preseason saying, Tyrod, you have to get better at this? Or is this just the system that they want to run, and it's like, well, Tyrod, whether you fit it or not, you're going to have to run this stuff. And if you can't, maybe it is going to be Peterman or someone else coming in to run the show.
No, that's a great question, and that staff is very West Coast backgrounds with Dennison and those guys, and so that they want that style of play, and then mix in they got to love them on boot play action stuff that they do love in the West Coast, but I think that they have that specific style of play after seeing him play out of structure so much that they're like, we're going to force you to try to do this stuff. And, if they get frustrated with it and they've seen Peterman operate that quick passing game at a very efficient level so far, maybe they are quick to pull it. But I think they definitely are saying, hey, this is how we want to play. We got to find out if you can do it or not.
There's one other rookie quarterback I do want to mention, CJ Beathard from the San Francisco 49ers. We did have a request from one of our millions and millions of listeners. Hey, give us a CJ Beathard breakdown. Getting a little bit of hype out there in San Francisco. I know you're going to throw a wet blanket all over the CJ Beathard hype, but why is he getting the hype? Just, statistically, 130.6 passer rating, so the stats look great. He's got 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. But, Zach, what are we really seeing?
Yeah, I think, I don't think he's playing bad by any means, but I think the hype is definitely a little overstated. I think Barkley is still the better player to be the backup there. Just everything that he does kind of, I think, fits that system a little better. Beathard's got a good arm. We've seen, him be able to stick throws in college. It's just his 3 touchdowns have been on a scramble play where the DB fell down after he threw it. Another short boot in the red zone to the guy in the flat, and then we saw Kittle take the one in the flat on a boot for a touchdown. So you see the stats, the 3 touchdowns, and you go crazy. But they've been very much on the other end of guys making plays, or the scheme as well. So I think there is some things to like, but I think that him over Barkley, I don't see it right now, and not sure I would ever say that he has the potential to overtake him. So we'll see.
Yeah, the George Kittle play was great. 5th-round pick for the Niners, one of our favorite players coming out of the draft. Just trucked a dude on the way in there and rumbled through the Denver defense, the former teammates over at Iowa. Again, I those are 6 rookies that we just ran through quick. Check out all of our scouting reports as part of the 2017 NFL Draft Guide, all a part of the package when you sign up for PFF Edge. Keep up with the scouting reports while watching the games. I actually have a lot of fun doing that because I see a lot of it. You wrote the scouting reports and I checked them over and I added some stuff and you added some stuff, and I feel like we're seeing a lot of the same stuff coming to fruition with these guys. So, the real key for these guys, can you improve some of those weaknesses, maintain your strengths, improve some of those weaknesses as you get more familiar with the NFL game, and that's what we'll be watching for all these guys for the rest of the preseason.
I'm curious all that stuff because we really dove pretty deep into this class, and so far a lot of it sticks out in being what we saw, and it's just going to be which of those certain traits or things that they don't do well, do they really improve on, do they not? It'll be, I think this class is a pretty unique case study in general, just because there's so many different types of players and how they go about their games. So it's a fun class to follow along, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm with you there. So let's move on to the Denver Broncos. They announced this week that Trevor Siemian will be the starter. They did try to give Paxton Lynch the start the other night against San Francisco. So he was running with the ones, and again, coming into the season, I think you're looking at this saying, we got a year of Trevor Siemian. Depending on your perspective, you could say, hey, here's a former 7th-round pick. He was excellent for a former 7th-round pick. On the other hand, you could say, well, this is the position that kind of held that team back because they have a championship-level defense. No matter which way you take it, Trevor Siemian versus Paxton Lynch, you have to think Denver was really hoping for Paxton to be the guy. He's the guy that they invested the 1st-round pick in. He's the guy with the bigger arm. In theory, maybe you could do a few more things with him, but just has not looked good at all on the field. And, sometimes you say a few stats and they, like a Beathard situation, you say, that doesn't really match up with the eye test. Other times you say some stats and that seems to match up with Paxton. The stats right now are matching up. He is, during the preseason here, 15 for 22. For only 81 yards. That's 3.7 yards per attempt. Passer rating of 74.2. Just the other night, 9 of 13, which looks great, but only for 39 yards. 3 yards per attempt against San Francisco the other night. What have you seen from Paxton, and just what was it? Why did he lose the job so quickly?
Yeah, I think, everybody just assumed that, 1 year later, the biggest jump you make first, second year, you just assumed he was going to be better than the last time we saw him out. And I think the reports, even all those OTAs, were that he was playing well and all these things. And it just doesn't look like he's playing with a whole lot of confidence. I think he looks far better last preseason and more comfortable and just out there playing than he does this season. This preseason looks like he's thinking his way through the game, not processing any reads or seeing coverage correctly. And, it's just leading to him playing indecisive and just not good football. So definitely was expecting to see a jump and man, just has not showed up.
All right, let's go back to your boy Trevor Siemian a little bit. Maybe the guy that we've talked about more than anyone else on the podcast. A couple episodes ago, we dove back into it. Give me the Cliff Notes version on, for Broncos fans, on Siemian, what to expect, what we saw from him last year, but also, okay, are there a couple things that he can improve upon to give Broncos fans hope heading into the season?
Yeah, I think it's so interesting because, you would think that the Denver Broncos, John Elway, they have this situation handled, and to have two guys that are still kind of 50-50 on if you can make a playoff run even with that good of a defense is fascinating to watch. I just with Siemian, you kind of, what you got is what you got. He's very accurate passer, and just you're limited on some of the read stuff that you can do, and Mike McCoy comes from just coaching Phillip Rivers and being able to do everything because that guy can process the entire world as he's dropping back there. But, so you are going to have to temper back just a lot of different things and hope that really you have a great game plan going in each week and the coverages are matching up with the team that you're playing and you can get kind of his first read going and get the ball out of his hand because he's got a great arm. We've talked about he's got a good natural snap, quick release, and an accurate arm. So you just got to get everything matched up, get the O-line protecting, and he definitely has a chance to move the change. It's just those games that it's not happening like you hope to, whether it's pressure up front and the coverage mixed up in the background. Those are the ones that you're looking for. Hey, can he get better at those and see coverage a little more clearly?
Yeah, that's a great way of describing it. I think we talked about it. Does this just put so much more pressure on the play caller because you need to have, your concept match up with the defense. You have to play that game of blackjack. Is it a game of blackjack? Whatever it is, it's you're right. Playing the odds of saying, hey, they play this coverage, this percentage of the time in this situation. I need to run plays that can beat that coverage, so I'm going to play my odds. You just have to be that much better at play calling and matching against their coverage, right? I
think so. Yeah, matching your playmakers matched up on their guys and the coverage, and hopefully that can, I guess alleviate a little bit of the stress you get up to the line of scrimmage when you're a quarterback. You're seeing a lot of different things, and guys are moving around, and it definitely makes it harder. So getting some predefined looks and those things formationally that you got to do. All part of the equation and definitely going to be a tall order for McCoy and the Broncos.
Where do you think this leaves Paxton Lynch? I mean, look, we're 2 games into his second preseason, and you can't just give up on him. He came out as a junior. He's still somewhat young. And I know for a fact there were teams that had him as the number 1 quarterback on the board in a draft where most people were saying it's either Jared Goff or it's Carson Wentz. I know that there were teams that had Paxton Lynch number 1. We already heard the reports that the Cowboys were ready to take him. They tried to move up to take him, and then they stumbled upon Dak Prescott. So, yes, better to be lucky than to be good. So it's not like people did not like Paxton Lynch coming out. Again, I thought he was more of a second or third round type of player, and I was a Paxton Lynch fan coming up as far as fans go. I followed his entire career closely. Where does this leave him? Is he just? You think he's done in Denver? Can he improve where he needs to improve? I mean, it's been ugly so far.
Yeah, I think just the maturity of facing this situation will probably be good for him. Maybe a little wake-up call for what he needs to get better at. And, I mean, playing quarterback in the NFL, you got to be absolutely committed all the time. Not saying that he's not, but maybe there's something there that, kind of needs to get reset. Because there's no reason he should be playing the way he is playing. He does have some talent. He's drafted in the first round. Maybe that was high, but there's still talent there for the way he's playing. Needs to reset the confidence. I don't think he's completely done in Denver, but he's going to need something good to happen, whether he gets a shot at it this year if Simeon goes down or anything like that. But he should be a far better player and putting better plays on tape than what he's done so far.
Yeah, and just going back to his scouting report real quick, I mean, I think coming out of Memphis, the expectation should have been he needs time to develop. Just like you talk about, hey, Mitch Trubisky, he's ready. Just throw him in. He's the type of guy that can handle it. I think Paxton had some developing to do, and I know that sitting and watching might not always be. There's always this debate, does that actually help you? Does it not? Do you need to just be thrown into the fire? Regardless of how it happens, I wasn't expecting success from Paxton Lynch necessarily in year 1 or 2. I expected it to take some time. So still time for that to happen. Let's take a look at one other quarterback. We talk about turning things around, and let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. But
your boy,
when you look at Jared Goff and the Los Angeles Rams, he looks much better, does he not? He just looks comfortable. He looks more comfortable. We always come back to this comfort level. And it is like night and day last year to this year with Jared Goff. What do you see in Zach? What is better? What is the difference this year, Jared Goff versus last year when not only did he struggled, the offensive line wasn't good, the playmakers weren't good around him, the play calling wasn't good, everything was bad.
Yeah.
What is different so far this season for Goff?
Yeah, I think it just looks like he's back to just playing football and not thinking his way through. I think he just got in there, looked completely, overwhelmed at times, flashed, some good things. It wasn't, I think, everybody blew up his last season like it was the worst thing ever. There certainly was a few good things on tape that you saw, but you said it. Just the overall comfort looks like they're playing to his strengths and mixing it up well, and the offensive scheme is we've talked about it last year. It's one of the best in the NFL, and I think you kind of are seeing that take over and the friendliness that it is to a quarterback. So his accuracy looks better. I think he looks even a little bit bigger. I know last year he's a skinny guy. Last year he looked small, and I think this year maybe he just looks a little bit more filled out. Made some good tight pocket plays last week under pressure. 110.8 quarterback rating, the third best in the NFL. So I think he's got the look now. He's just got to keep building on that and keep rolling. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, so when we did our big-time throwcast this summer, we went QB by QB. The Jared Goff episode, we were certainly out in the open saying, look, he wasn't good last year. We fully admitted that. You and I both liked him coming out, but we said, hey, look, it was not a key season. But we also explained a lot of the situation around him and how poor it was. And the thing I always kept coming back to with Goff is even though he played at Cal and it was the air raid system and supposedly that's not supposed to translate to the NFL, it was a system that he had mastered. When you watched him at Cal, you saw quick eyes, a quick mind. He'd get from 1 to 2 to 3. And, even though my whole theory on it was even if he takes a while to master an NFL system, I think he's shown the ability to master a system and work through progressions and find open receivers and maneuver the pocket. And at some point, he'll get there. And I think that's what we're already seeing. I was impressed with his pocket movement the other night. There was even just a little dump off to Gerald Everett that put him in space that I thought he maneuvered the
one
nicely.
On the left side.
Yeah, exactly. He just maneuvered the pocket a little bit. The touchdown to Cooper Kupp, even though it was wide open, he had to get rid of it quickly, create a little bit of space coming out of play action. So little things like that where he just looks so much more comfortable because he was not doing that at all a year ago.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the mastering the system, that's a great way to put it, because when you watched him just process the game and how he can see the game once he gets stuff down, it was impressive, and how quickly he can get from 1 to 2 to 3 while feeling the pocket and maintaining a good, base about him and staying accurate. So starting to see that stuff. Now we'll just see if he can continue to build on that and keep making those tight pocket plays. That was one of the best plays. I'm with you on the dump off to Gerald Everett. Doesn't look like much, but those are so hard to do and maintain, the right amount of poise and accuracy to get to the guy. So definitely some positive stuff for Goff, and we'll just see if he can continue to build.
Yeah, definitely like where that is moving. Have to give credit to Sean McVay, that entire offensive system, and mentioned it with Sam on the preseason Week 2 review. A very interesting group of playmakers there, where you have a guy like Cooper Kupp, who's such a good route runner, and he's showing it even at the NFL level. You have Sammy Watkins as a deep threat. You have Gerald Everett, who I mentioned, as a good explosive tight end, after the catch type of guy, and a few other guys that I think can do some damage as playmakers. So love what they're doing over there in Los Angeles as far as building that offense and rebuilding it behind Goff. I just want to do like a quick whip around the NFL, just quarterbacks in general and things that we've seen. Sam and I also talked about the Jacksonville Jaguars situation where Blake Bortles, I mentioned he looks like he has the yips. I mean, he just is not, he's just not letting it go. But Bortles and Henny are supposedly competing for the job. And then Brandon Allen, in his little hands, Zach,
he can play.
I think he's a pretty good player, and I think he's got a shot. If they give him one, why not let Brandon Allen have a shot? What do you think of that Jacksonville QB situation?
Yeah, it's a bizarre one. The yips, I think you're exactly right. He's just, he's gone. It looks like he's now, not only processing and having to see things, what the coverage is and the route concept, but now he's thinking his way through his release which is no way to play. I think it's obviously showing up. There was one severe underthrow that we saw on the corner route that just you could tell just thinking his way through the motion, and so it's tough. I'm with you. I think Brandon Allen is a good player. That his size and all those things hurt him coming out of the draft, but man, he's worked in a pro style system at Arkansas, and then he's developed in that. You can tell he's just miles better from even last year, but he's a guy that has got a good feel for the game. Arm is good, not great, but he brings an interesting view because Chad Henne is not really a guy that's going to run around and make a bunch of plays for you, kind of stay in structure, and he'll deliver from the pocket. But Allen brings a little bit of playmaker kind of grittiness that you like. So it's an interesting how it's going to all shake out. I think the Bortles thing is just, it's too bad that it's gotten to that point, but he's having to think way too much.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Bortles' career, he's 3 years in, and it was a bad rookie season, signs of life in year 2, and then year 3 was this massive regression. And I think coming into this year, you're just like, okay, how do we get back to 2015? Can we get back there? Early returns in the preseason, it's just ugly. There's just so many throws where he is thinking too much. In the Blake Bortles episode, though, you did suggest a way to fix him, right? The jump throw. Get that guy being more athletic.
That's all. That's what he is. He's he's a move around in the pocket and feel the pocket, and he's got all that other stuff that you like. But I feel like he feels like he's got to play a certain way, and he's almost gotten away from the type of player that he is. Just try to maximize what he is and not try to say, okay, yes, I need to fix my throwing arm, because your throwing arm, there's not much that changes with your actual throwing arm. You can tweak footwork and those types of things, but if you're having to think your way through a throwing motion as an NFL quarterback, I mean, it's already hard enough as it is. So it's too bad, because I do like the other parts of his game, man. He's got some playmaker to him. So I don't know how that whole situation is going to end up, but likely they're going to be looking for a guy down the road.
Explain the jump throw real quick for those who have not heard it before. I'm not talking about the Doug Flutie or Tim Tebow jump off the ground throw. You're talking about just a different way of doing your footwork, which is more athletic.
Yeah, it's just basically just releasing your left foot off the ground when you throw. You can watch Aaron Rodgers is the guy that does it. I think a few of the games, just watching, it was about 60-70% of the time where he has both feet off the ground. It's just a very small lift of your left foot, kind of allows your lower body to get all the way through it. And the biggest thing, I've trialed and errored this thing for the last couple of years, just messing around, and you just feel like you're playing in the backyard. And I think that's when everybody's at their best, is when you're just playing ball, you're just being your natural athletic self. And so that's what it is. He shows it in games, and when he does do it, he throws the ball more accurately, and his release is sped up a little bit. So man, if he's listening, get on some more jump throws and watch some Aaron Rodgers tape.
Oh man, we got to get Blake working with you next offseason. Get him back on track. Let me just name a couple other guys. Cooper Rush with Dallas supposedly might be up for that number 2 spot behind my boy Kellen Moore. I am just fascinated watching Kellen Moore play football with a middle school arm and some pretty good pocket presence and some pretty good accuracy. But Cooper Rush, rookie out of Central Michigan, playing some pretty good football for Dallas, and he doesn't have a much better arm than Kellen Moore either, but man, he's been accurate and making good decisions.
Yeah, no, you watch those two guys play, and they are almost identical players, and just how they feel the pocket, their arm strength is about the same, and I think that's really, if you look at Scott Linehan, that's just the guy that he likes. He likes those feel players because they don't require a whole lot of reps. They can go out and just kind of feel it and play it. He had Sean Hill as a backup for so long, and you watch Sean Hill next to those guys, and they're all three almost the exact same type of player. So
I like that comparison. That's interesting.
They all got, may not have the strongest arms, but they can, get to check downs. They can, feel the pocket a little bit and try to muster out some completions. We've just seen Kellen Moore just not hit throws that he should hit and kind of get the ball out of his hand and anticipate And we've seen Cooper Rush do that a little bit more. He's been a little bit more accurate, and he's getting the ball out of his hand and anticipating just a little bit better than Kellen Moore right now. So I don't know. I think they're obviously in huge trouble if Dak goes down, but it's going to be interesting to see if that thing shakes out and they do go with Rush. I think it's still a long shot for him, but he is playing some pretty good ball.
Dak, statistically at least, picked up right where he left off in his first action the other night, working with massive pockets, man. The Cowboys' offensive line going up against the Colts' pass rush, just unfair. Dak had oceans to work with to maneuver around, but made good decisions, find open guys, finding open receivers, chucked one up to Dez Bryant, let Dez do all the work on the touchdown, but that offense, if they continue to give him all that room to maneuver and the receivers keep getting open the way they do and using the boot game to open things up, the Dallas offense is still going to be very, very difficult to defend. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, they look like, you said it. I mean, he looks like he just picked up right where he left off. Seeing the game clearly, and the pockets are massive. So that offense is going to be tough to stop, even without Zeke. So they'll be solid. Dak looks the same accuracy wise. Ball's coming out good. So they're not going to be slowed down much.
I'm going to give you a weekly Christian Hackenberg update. Through 2 games, he's 20 for 31. Looks great on paper. 4.5 yards per attempt. And he's only 1 for 4 on passes thrown over 10 yards, 10 or more yards. So Hackenberg, we talked last week, that short passing game, he took a step back again last week. At some point, they need to try to unleash him a little bit and see what they have. But it's actually weird because the PFF grade isn't as bad as the numbers look so far for Hackenberg.
Yeah. I mean, he's playing safe. I think he's he is getting the ball out of his hand. They're calling a lot of controlled passes underneath, and the first read's been there, and he's been able to get it out. So I'm with you. Let him loose and see if it's actually an offense that you can build around, and if he can get some some of those intermediate play action shot plays that they're going to need. We'll see if he's got the accuracy to take it to the next level. We've seen it. I still don't see it with him, but he is improved upon last year when even quick game and all the underneath stuff was wildly inaccurate. So some good stuff, but still got to see a lot more if he's going to be the guy.
Baby steps so far. A couple other guys to touch on. Cardell Jones in L.A. with the Chargers. They brought him in perhaps to compete for the backup quarterback job with Kellen Clemens. And Cardell, it's just been ugly so far. 9 for 24 so far. 37.5% completions, 35 passer rating. This is another one where the stats actually do match up with Cardell's performance so far.
Yeah, I think when he got traded for, it was a little bit of a head scratcher. You were wondering if maybe they saw something in Buffalo in practice that we have yet to see in games, because even dating back to last preseason and then when he played late in the last year, there was nothing really to say that he could even be a backup. So, kind of wild decision making, wild on accuracy, has not been very clean. And obviously he's learning, somewhat of a new system or new environment and how they're doing things out there. But, there's not much to see that he's going to unseat Kellen Clemens out there.
Anyone else that's really stood out, either for better or for worse? The one other guy I did want to bring up was maybe Ryan Mallett with Baltimore, just because right now it looks like he might end up starting if Joe Flacco never comes back. And Mallett, man, he just it's tough putting. He's not sustaining drives, and for a guy that has such a cannon, he was the opposite of Kellen Moore for me, man. He's just the big arm guy that I wanted to see develop and see if he could ever put that big arm together with some accuracy and pocket presence. But his career numbers, 5.4 yards per attempt in the regular season, and then we have preseason data dating back to 2013, 5.7 yards per attempt. And it's just one number, but I think it just sums up for this big arm guy that should be able to drive the ball down the field. He's just too inaccurate and inconsistent down to down.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think we've seen just some pretty wild decisions as well. Just thinking he can fit something in there, and then ends up kind of maybe getting spooked last second, and it throws it even more off, and then it leads to a tip pass that gets picked. So I think he is what he is as a player. You're going to have some big time throws in there, and he can do some special stuff with his arm, but just the down to down consistency is just not there.
Any other guys that have stood out either for better or for worse that you firing through all these guys?
Yeah, I've been firing through quite a bit. The interesting thing to watch is the Arizona kind of backup battle with Drew Stanton and Gabbert. Gabbert's actually looked pretty good. He's playing in rhythm. Yeah, with some good rhythm. He looks comfortable in that offense. They're kind of using their play action game that they do well, and he's sticking some throws. So he's a guy to watch. And over Stanton. Stanton accuracy wise, not as accurate as Gabbert, but has a little better feel and can kind of see the game maybe a little bit clearer. But that one's interesting to watch. Gabbert's been pretty good. Josh Woodrum's played pretty solid in Baltimore when he's got a chance. Trying to think who else. Boykin is Boykin, but overall, it's so hard because these guys. I was just thinking, watching earlier, you get into these preseason games in the second half, and you get these play calls that you may have not even run this play one time in practice, and then you expect to go out and execute it in the game. You watch it, you see it in practice because these third string guys, you're getting maybe 4 or 5 throws a practice, and then you get thrown out there, and obviously you're expected to be able to run everything, and so. It's always hard to evaluate and judge some of those guys later, and some guys can look really good and some guys can struggle, but you just always think, man, how many times has this guy actually run this play in practice? Because the reps are just so few now with the new CBA and all those things. That's a whole nother story. But it's been interesting to see some of these guys throughout the preseason. We've seen some good play, and we've seen some guys that we expected to play well just not show up as much.
That's an interesting angle because you don't always think about that. You just assume, everybody gets to run every play and it's training camp and all that stuff. But, yeah, that's interesting. These guys, it could have been the first time they run certain plays and actually see it live. That's got to be difficult to do. Let me finish with this because we already talked about Blake Bortles, and then you brought up Arizona. There were rumors going around that Arizona liked Blake Bortles quite a bit pre-draft, and that maybe he's got enough arm for Bruce Arians' system. And, if this is the end of the road for Blake Bortles in Jacksonville, I think a lot of people have already linked him as a future Arizona Cardinal. Do you think that would be a good fit or place to at least try Bortles as a reclamation project, especially with Carson Palmer, close to retirement?
Yeah, I think so. I think, Bruce Arians, quarterback whisperer. I think, maybe he can just get Blake to just settle down and play and not worry about his mechanics and not, think his way through that. I think that does sound like a good spot for him to go and kind of just reset and see if he can resurrect something because, there's still some game that he's got that's he's going to stick around in the NFL, potentially as a backup for a long time or just, the starter level that he's at right now. But I'm with you. I think that'd be a great spot for him.
All right, that'll do it for us on the Big Time Throwcast episode of the PFF podcast. Be sure to stay with us all season. Subscribe to the PFF podcast to hear every single week a breakdown of all of your favorite quarterbacks. We'll be taking your feedback as we go during the season. As I mentioned earlier, if you are just a Big Time Throwcast subscriber, be sure to get over to the PFF podcast. If you guys are liking the podcast, please be sure to leave us a 5-star review over on iTunes and leave an email address or a Twitter handle, because we will take one lucky reviewer and give him or her a free PFF Elite subscription. That's worth $200. I promise it is worth doing. PFF Elite is the best product that PFF offers right now. If you're interested in PFF Edge, which is our $40 product, we have a couple offers for you guys to get that on the cheap. All you have to do is go to profootballfocus.com/DraftKings17 or profootballfocus.com/FanDuel17. You either go to DraftKings or go to FanDuel. Make your first deposit. I think it's a $10 deposit, and you'll get PFF Edge for free. That's a $40 value. All you have to do is make that first deposit. So be sure to check that out. Also, don't forget about our friends over at Draft in the App Store. Go check it out and use the PFF promo code to get yourself a free $3 game. Thanks again to everybody for listening. Follow Zach at Zach_Robinson5, and I am at PFF_Steve. And we'll be back next week with more quarterback breakdowns.